Hello, this is Carl Loben, editor-in-chief of DJ Magazine, and also the co-owner of Jack Said What Records and author and DJ. You're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a DJ, musician, producer, author to talk about the two loves of life, which is music and football. My next guest is editor-in-chief of DJ Mag, also a DJ and producer. He's a co-author of this absolutely amazing book. And it's a deep dive into drum and bass, and I can't wait to talk about that with him. But he also runs a label with a couple of mates called Jack Said What. But welcome to the podcast today, Carl Loben. Welcome, mate.
Thanks very much, Daz. That's a nice intro you've given me there.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have fireworks behind me to
That's my birthday fireworks night.
Huh?
My birthday's fireworks night.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, everybody's setting off fireworks for you then. That's not bad.
That's what my dad thought when I was born. Yeah. When he was walking across Wimbledon Common.
Well, Carl is also a Chelsea supporter, so I'm sure he's happy with the way the season's gone. I know I'm happy because, Liverpool won the league. Do you want to talk music or do you want to talk football first?
Maybe music first, perhaps.
Okay. For you, I'm going to go back to your roots and I always like to know this. What was playing in your house as a young kid, and did your mum and dad's music have any influence on you?
My mum and dad they had records and a record player. My mum was into like Buddy Holly and Elvis and the like, and had a few of their albums, while my dad had more like Beatles albums and did Bob Dylan. And my mum had gone to the Rolling Stones when she was really young as well, so she was into them, but I don't think we had any of their albums. But it was definitely, music was getting played on the stereo in my house, and I actually liked both. I mean, the Beatles, you can't go wrong really, but especially the progression. But then when my kind of first independent musical love came, I was too young for punk, but with Two Tone, the sound that brought the Specials and Madness and the Beat and the Selector and so on to the forefront of the UK music scene, which is such an exciting time, just at the start of the 80s, I suppose. And so I got into all that stuff, where getting the Fred Perrys and the tassel shoes, as well as sort of buying all the records and stuff.
Yeah, the skinny ties and did you do the suits?
I didn't have enough money really, but I don't think, or well, they probably didn't cost that much. I don't know. I mean, I was only 13, 14. But it was Two Tones kind of my gateway into, well, in a way, black music, but certainly dub and reggae sort of thing, a little bit further down the line, and just instinctively the multi-racial, multicultural side of it really sort of appealed to me as well. Black and white unite.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of the same as well. I was a mod for a minute, two tone. I loved the soul as well. One of my best mates, his family's from the West Indies, and they kind of every day I would go over his house and I would hear, Jamaican and West Indian music, and I wanted to know more, just because like there was this bass line in it that was just I fell in love with, and then obviously two tone, and then that kind of connected the dots for me. So was that same for you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. But then also at the time, because there was so much good music around at the time that actually got into the charts, which was kind of where I initially discovered it, from post punk stuff, and then after the Two Tone thing, I even liked some of the early new romantic stuff or whatever, and then sort of indie goth kind of stuff, and it was just a really rich, vibrant time for music coming out off the back of the punk era, I suppose, and these yeah, these acts, these quite weird or quite out there alternative bands getting into the charts, which is almost hard to believe would ever happen nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Were you a Top of the Pops fan?
Oh, absolutely. I love Top of the Pops, and I used to, listen to the top 40 as well and tape the top 40. And then a bit later, when I think for my birthday, I asked for a tape to tape machine, and Alan Sugar twin deck Amstrad jobby, and then I'd go to the library and get albums by whoever they had all these albums by anyone from OMD to Steel Pulse, and you just tape them, and that that was kind of my record collection early on, was a load of taped off the library illegally, really. But then later on I would buy some of those albums in reality.
Well, I think that it was on Thursday nights, wasn't it? Top of the Pops usually.
Yeah,
But I think it was like a very big, like, I know for me, a very big family thing. You'd eat your dinner around Top of the Pops, and maybe a shandy every couple of weeks. I just remember that. But yeah, just being able to see, like, I mean, Top of the Pops was very, very bizarre because, especially like 70s, early 80s, you would get very like novelty uh,
yeah.
chords on there, but then you'd also get like the two tone and some reggae as well, and again, being able to see that like through the telly, like gave me like, oh wow, these bands are getting recognition like they deserve. And then when you're old enough, you find out if they're playing anywhere near your town and you go see them, because there's nothing like seeing a band that you like live.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think at the time, like, I used to sort of secretly like disco acts on Top of the Pops as well, which it probably wasn't the done thing to admit that you did if you were more into kind of alternative guitar music or whatever. But maybe that kind of perhaps later on fed into my you know how I fell into the acid house kind of scene as well, when more towards the late 80s, when house music and then techno sort of came along, and I became a born again raver.
Yeah, I mean, same trajectory. I mean, it was like the early pop music of the 80s, and then obviously indie bands. The Manchester scene, 88, 89 exploded. And, that's where I came into, hearing my first acid house track and just hooked. I mean, that's the thing. Everyone I talk to is always, they could remember like the name of the track that kind of hooked them. What was yours?
It was possibly, well, the moment was at Glastonbury Festival in the late 80s, where I had my acid house epiphany, and our little crew sort of ventured out on I think it was the Saturday night, having imbibed some various substances, and sort of suddenly we were under the stars by a sound system, dancing and having a great time. And I think who it was on top of the truck, a sort of slightly illegal, we had just pulled on uh, traveler's truck or whatever. But Guru Josh of all people was DJ, and I actually remember that record, the Infinity record, which I think I'd probably heard on the radio or something, because it kind of got in the pop chart. But suddenly, under the stars in this setting, it sort of took on a different feeling and meaning, and that is pretty much where I had my acid house epiphany, I think. I mean, before that, in terms of nightclubs, I thought nightclubs were just somewhere to go for a late drink, where you might try and pull someone or whatever, and sometimes they were a bit shit. But that kind of opened a whole new door and world for me as well. The fact
Well,
that,
when did the DJing start for you then?
well, so then fast forward a little bit, and I finished my college course and was basically on the dole, and I thought, what am I going to do myself now? And I was just smoking dope and doing not a great deal. And I thought, what am I going to do? I like music and I like writing, and I'd be reading NME and Melody Maker and the Face or things like that, and with the Inkies, the weekly music papers, I thought, well, album reviews, live review, I could do that. I could write an album review, I could write a live review, and I sort of did some sample ones where I'd go to a gig and write a review of it, collected a few together and sent them into both Melody Maker and NME, and Melody Maker kind of wrote back and said, "Yeah, all right, you can start writing for us then." I was quite lucky at the right place, right time, or whatever, and so I started writing in the early '90s for Melody Maker, and had a whale of a time doing that for most of the rest of the '90s. And as I sort of got to write more and more about electronic music, I'd be sent all these records, all these new releases by PR companies and record labels and whatnot, and you know, as well as kind of, and as I became an evangelist for dance music, basically, which was kind of pretty much an underground sound still at the time. And I thought, well, as well as evangelizing about these records in print, I could just play them out somewhere as well. And so sort of started playing in the third or fourth room of kind of acid house parties in Hackney, where I lived at the time, and all around this new sound seemed to be forming as well. I'd hear it coming out of car windows and from pirate radio and the odd record shop and stuff, and this futuristic, mad breakbeat sound of, well, it was jungle and drum and bass. I started hearing that, going, wow, what is this? And sort of investigating and trying to find sources of the music and stuff, and I ended up writing about loads of the drum and bass people in Melody Maker as well, which would be quite, I suppose, I mean, at the time, someone flicking through Melody Maker would see all these boring indie bands like Embrace or Travis or someone, and then in the middle there'd be a page or two on Ronnie Size and Represent, or For Hero, or whoever it was. So I made my home really in this 4-page bit, the Orbit section in Melody Maker, as the '90s went on, which was overseen by someone who became a really good pal, Sherman. And every week I'd get to interview or write about dance music or dance music producers and DJs, but as well sort of be caught up in the general music thing as well. So the Britpop thing was happening, and you know, it was a real exciting time for music in general, living in London and just going to all sorts of things all the time.
Were you going out nearly every night of the week?
Yeah, pretty much at one point. Yeah, it definitely seemed like that. And also sometimes going to squat parties or underground raves, as well as the latest thing at the Astoria or some kind of like big established venue. So I did the whole spectrum really of music at the time, and thought it was important to be kind of documenting bits where I could as well.
Well, I think one of the biggest things, Carl, that I miss is the community of going to a record shop. You know, everything's digital now, so you can just get on Beatport, you can just get out of bed, get on the internet. You know, but back in the day, it was a meeting point, and I've still got mates. You know, that I used to go to 3Beat, and then Eastern Bloc in Manchester. So I've still got mates from back in the day. It was just community driven, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I really miss. You know, because you'd hear the music on the weekend, and then Monday morning you come, and in your head you're trying to tell the seller, you know, it went like this and went like that, and they would just pull out a stack of records. You know, a lot of them weren't the ones you were looking for, but it was just going through those. I would spend hours upon hours, but chatting as well, and I think that's one of the biggest things like I miss, and for you as well. I mean, it's a melting pot, isn't it? A record shop.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and the social side of it as well would be, you know, looking back on it, really important as well. So you might just start chatting to the person next to you about, oh, I've got that record already, or have you heard this other thing by them, or whatever it was, and then suddenly they're your new best friend, or you go off and have a cup of coffee with them, or you end up producing a record with them, or whatever it is, that they were a real meeting place, as well as being sort of like the people quite behind the counter at the various London shops I'd go to, like, you know, Black Market or Ambient Soho or whatever it was, would be trying to obviously sell records to you, but they'd be saying, "Oh, have you heard this new thing? Or have you heard this?" And feeding you new releases as well that maybe weren't being sent by PR companies like I was, you know, to an extent. But that used to be a great thing as well. Sometimes it'd feel like Christmas every day when you get 5 or 6 records in the post every day. It'd be like, wow, amazing, this is brilliant. And then obviously try and I mean, there was a lot less music released every week back then. Back then in, you know, in the 90s or whatever, you maybe get 70 or 80 new releases a week released on vinyl, because vinyl was the only way to, well, CD as well, but for singles, vinyl was the main way. And nowadays on Spotify or whatever, it's 20,000 tracks a day. How are you supposed to keep up with that? But back then it was possible to sort of have a broad overview of what was going on. And what was really interesting about the drum and bass thing was how all the producers midweek would go to some of the midweek nights in London, like Swerve or Speed or Movement, and all basically hang out, but then also be checking for the tunes. And then also a competitive element would come into play as well. It'd play like, wow, that tune's really taken gone such and such a way. And when I get back to my studio later on tonight or tomorrow, I'll try and do a one-upmanship kind of thing from that. And it sort of, that's how music scenes could evolve by the evolution, and by people being in the same room as well. Like in a record shop, the interaction would spur on people to, you know, maybe do a different kind of collab. Oh, you're a singer. I've never thought of doing a record with a folk singer, and me being an electronic producer. But maybe and you get, you know, just by the human nature and contact of it all, get some, you know, innovative new sounds coming out, hopefully.
Well, I liked it, you know, how some DJ, you know, we're all chain spotters, you know, when you hear a good track, you kind of want to know what it is. But, you know, especially like the drum and bass scene, you know, with the dub plates, putting stickers over, you know, or just colouring them in, so you can't you're kind of going like this, trying to watch the vinyl go round. It's so easy these days, you know. You have Shazam, or, you know, if you can kind of get behind, which, you know, most DJs now have about like 300-400 people behind them now, instead of like in front of them. That's another thing that I just don't understand, is the whole new, like, everyone's behind the DJ when, you know, they're supposed to be in front dancing.
Yeah, well, they want to feel special. But the thing I just don't get is standing in front of the DJ, but just filming them when there's nothing really to film. It's the DJs going, you know, twiddling a couple of knobs, but yeah, as has been pointed out in recent years, sometimes now the DJ dances more than the clubbers, because the clubbers have sort of stood there, the ones at the front anyway, stood there filming the DJ, and so the DJ thinks, oh, I've got to make a right old, I've got to put on a bit of a show here. And it's weird how that's flipped, because then when the person gets back home, the quality of the video is just rubbish, the sound is terrible, and what are they actually going to do with that 30-minute thing where they filmed the DJ? And the quality of it is just shit. It's far better for me to be in the moment and you know, sort of be experiencing the music in the way it was called more traditionally meant to be, like, to make you dance.
Well, I mean, you know, the DJ now is the rock star, has been for a while. And I'm not a big David Guetta fan, but I appreciate where he came out and he was like, I'm not a DJ, I'm an entertainer. You know, massive difference. And that's the thing. I think we've put DJs up on these pedestals where, you know, I know you remember where the DJ was off in the corner. You could barely see them. all I was listening for was the music. Is he any good? You know, what was coming out the sound system is what I cared about. I don't care what you look like. If you want to run around throwing your hands in the air, that's you. But you know, it's all about the music, and I think it's it's the persona of the DJ is taken over the music. Obviously, visuals have come into it now. The light show is just absolutely insane, and I think for me it doesn't enhance the experience. It takes away from what the DJ is actually playing.
I mean, yeah, everything evolves, and yeah, I'm probably like you from the sort of the older school way of doing things, where it would be more about the community on the dance floor, the having a great time with your mates, and having adventures and sort of soaking up these new sounds and having a good dance. Yeah, sometimes you might be vaguely aware of who was playing. Going, oh, who's playing now? Oh, right, okay. And then, but this thing of it being it was participatory rather than a spectator sport. Like that to me was just, I mean, I used to rant on about this in Manda Maker as well. It's hangover from rock and roll. Just stand with a band, you stand there and watch them, but with a DJ, there's nothing to watch. It's more about the communal experience. It's more about the totality of it, and um, be participating in the whole event, where there maybe be some strange sculptures over there or some strange people dressed up as whatever over there, and it was more like about the experience rather than the show from the stage.
Yeah, I know, 100% agree. It's just, you know, without, I always try and do this without sounding like an old fart, you know, because it is, you know, the kids, this is their generation, you know, social media, you know, is number one. Instagram, they want to get the drops of the DJ, and, you know, it's a 2 minute track. That's all he can take. You know, I miss the days of a 7, 8, 9, 10 minute long track where the DJ is weaving in and out. You know, Dave Clark to me is a techno god. And if anyone wants to listen to real techno, listen to Dave Clark and the way he mixes. The way he mixes to me is like a hip hop DJ. It's
Yeah.
incredible how he cuts back and forth. And I just think I mean I'm hoping like especially like you know I live in America, so EDM is huge over here. I'm hoping in the next 5, 10 years 40 to 50% that go to these festivals will start going a bit more underground and going to, you know, these dingy little clubs, you know, where the resident DJ plays 6, 7 hours and really does take you on the journey. And I know the journey thing, like some people will go, you know, journey, whatever. But you know, again, that's the role of a DJ, is to take you from A to Z, and
Mm.
not straight from you know, not straight from A to Z in an hour. You know, these small like 1 hour sets just
Yeah.
that must be. I mean, if you're a hardcore like DJ, that must be like soul destroying
Well,
sometimes.
you just feel like you have to bang out the hits or the big
Yeah,
tunes, and yeah. But I mean, I suppose it's like to me, it's similar to that thing where everyone's got their own entry point into music, and whether that's a boy band in the charts or a girl band or whatever it is, you start off, or maybe their first independent musical love was heavy metal or two tone, like myself, or whatever it is, and then you sort of then you're in the music world, and then you start hearing some other sounds. And to me, that's the thing. That's what EDM is a bit like as well. It's the sort of it's the most in your face, upfront, brash commercial side of dance music. And people might go to Ultra in Miami and be like, when they're 18, 21, and have this amazing time and see DJs like Steve Aoki and Afrojack and whoever it is, and then maybe a year or two later they're like, oh, well, I actually slightly more been getting into techno recently, and they go on their own journey into musical discovery, and perhaps it starts off with the most accessible pop-tastic sort of side of music, but then maybe hopefully if you've got an inquisitive ear or mind, whatever, you explore a bit deeper into new sounds, and then suddenly you're deep down a rabbit hole into the history of I don't know, IDM or whatever, or yeah, or wherever you end up in, or how most people seem to end up now is having a big wide varied lot of acts and sounds that they like. I mean, it was very tribal in the 90s. I only like drum and bass, or I only like techno, or whatever. But everything's much more, whether you put it down to the iPod Shuffle sort of, or the BBC Six Music effect, or whatever, where you have Iggy Pop next to Sherelle, next to the Gibson Brothers, or people are allowed to like any kind of music now, which has only got to be healthy.
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, as long as it makes me move and has at least some heart and soul in it, I'm with it. I think I was a bit of a when I first got into acid house. Obviously, the Balearic beat. I was loving that, and that's all I listened to. And then my sister was just like, turn that off, please. She's a year older than me, so she was more into like a lot like more tech house and techno. So she's shout out to me sister. She's the one that kind of got me starting to move away from Balearic and listen to some other stuff. And that's for me where like jungle and drum and bass came in, because it was totally different and I'd never heard anything like it before. I mean, obviously the hardcore breaks, all the big raves, but like when drum and bass started to get refined, the Fabios, the Groove Riders, the Randalls, LTJ Buckham, I was hooked. And I mean, again, I want to bring this up because it is an absolutely brilliant, brilliant book. I'm reading to me kids about drum and bass, like seriously. Well, one because I love the book. Two, I can't read any more fairy tale stories, even though this is a bit of a adult fairy tale story. I want to know like the ins and outs of, obviously, you've worked for Melody Maker and DJ Mag. When did that idea of the book come up?
I mean, it was some point in the the 2010s, I'd say. Me and my pal Ben Murphy, who also worked for DJ Mag, would say, why has there never been some sort of, almost like definitive historical book about drum and bass? And then we thought, well, maybe we should do it. And we sort of started exploring that. But I actually, with my day job as DJ Mag, we did in fact get a commission, but then I'd find that I wouldn't have the headspace to write after a day at work and then traveling home or whatever, 8 o'clock, having a tea, and I'm supposed to start writing at 10 o'clock at night. I'm knackered. Didn't have the headspace. But then when the lockdown happened because of COVID, suddenly everyone sat at home. Some people went up in their attic and sorted out their old photos or started baking sourdough bread or whatever. Me and Ben just cracked on writing our book, which was great for me to finally have that headspace. And I drew on some of those interviews from the 90s with very strong bass people. Then we also did some fresh ones as well, because again, like, assorted junglists were just sat at home and all too willing to, oh yeah, of course I'll chat to you. And so there was some old interviews and some original interviews, and also the writing. We tried to sort of describe some of the music as well, and also placing it historically in when it came along chronologically and on what labels and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed the experience, and because there was two of us, that we were batting, like, go, oh, I think I've just finished that chapter about Marky and the Brazilian kind of guys. Let me send it to you, and we get feedback off the other person and edits and whatnot. And the process was highly enjoyable, and yeah, it gave me a bit of a taster for wanting to write more books now, which I still haven't managed to even start another one yet because we're not in a lockdown anymore.
Well, I mean, I love the little like side stories from the mums and dads. You know, they're involved in it as well. You know, it wasn't just like the DJs, but the mum and dad stories, and it just brings you closer. And you know, again, like I said about my best mate and his family from the West Indies, just hearing their stories of you know coming over to Liverpool and you know what they had to endure you know during their time, but bringing their community. It's just you know it's just great to hear, and then reading this, it just clicked in my mind. You know, like wow, it took me back to you know the 70s and 80s with my best mate and his family with red beans and rice. You know, the smells of their house. As soon as I go in, I knew you know they were putting on a pot of red beans and rice. And this book like really does bring me back, and I think that's one great thing. Like I said about like reading to me kids is they can kind of get an idea of what daddy was, you know, listening to early on and what daddy was kind of going through as well. So yeah, it's just a absolutely fantastic book. And I mean, like for you as a drum and bass fan as well, being able to talk to these DJs and producers must have been absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah, great. I mean, in the 90s, it would be like, they say don't meet your heroes, but these people would be heroes to me, and then suddenly you're in the same room as LTJ Book and whatever, interviewing them, and yeah, I've been lucky enough to interview pretty much everyone in electronic music over the years, and I say do meet your heroes and do because it's most people in music are nice and have got interesting stuff to say, and it's good that these scenes are documented. I mean, with the drum and bass thing, um, I mentioned whilst writing it that we're in lockdown, but then in lockdown also the George Floyd um, incident, murder by the cop happened, and the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter protests led to a bit of a reckoning within the music industry. And then suddenly, like in the 90s, most or half of the people I'd interview, drum and bass people, would be black, half, and it was such a mixed scene, black and white, a bit like the two-tone thing. And suddenly in drum and bass in 2020, it was mainly white guys in black t-shirts suddenly who were the most prominent people. So there was a reckoning within drum and bass and also within the wider music industry about the um, representation and rewarding of black artists within scenes. That actually made a kind of interesting twist to the final couple of, I don't know how far you got in the book yet, the final couple of chapters, um, as to what happened within the drum and bass scene, and that when there was kind of that reckoning as well, because it now does seem as a result of that, it's much become, thanks to various initiatives like the EQ50 thing and Black Junglist Alliance, it's become more of a mixed scene again, which has only got to be a good thing, really.
Well, it's crazy, you know, reading about DJ Rap. I never ever knew that why she got blacklisted from
Yeah,
all the London clubs for playing Mr. Kirk's Nightmare, and that I was just like, wow, you know, and to you know, I read up a bit more about it, and you know, she wasn't even playing in the same room as
she
what
didn't
happened.
realize someone had died in the rave. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
complete accident, but she got kind of scapegoated for it or whatever.
yeah, that's just mental, you know. I mean, for you know, you're just playing like what you think you want to play, you know, and at the time it was a big song to play. So I mean, you know, I just that's just absolutely crazy to have read that, and then you know, again taking snippets from this is because I love the drum and bass scene. I love, like I said, I love all kinds of music, but this is kind of an encyclopedia for me because I can go back and then I can read up more on these artists and read up more on, what was happening in the 90s with drum and bass. And it really is, Carl. It's absolutely fantastic. It's like I'm trying to sell it to everyone because it's an absolute, yeah, and you don't have to be a drum and bass fan, just because it's just a damn good book that tells the story of, to me, again, community, which is massive for me.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Well, I mean, yeah, we've heard bits of feedback where people have said they're reading the book and then a track is mentioned or whatever, and they kind of well either just put it on YouTube or Spotify or something, or even make a playlist for that particular bit. That, on the list, or people discovering or rediscovering drum and bass tunes through reading the book, which is really nice to hear.
I want to know what's one of your favorite drum and bass tracks of all time.
God.
Yeah, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, the book's called Renegade Snares. That is one of my favourites as well, the foul play mix of that. But I mean, I've got loads. I used to sort of, I tried becoming a drum bass DJ, and it was, although I got to play at things like the warm up at Movement and even the odd other sort of prominent place, it was kind of quite a closed off scene in the late 90s, even though I lived in London and what have you. So I ended up, and also I'd play at house parties, and people would say, "Oh, don't really, it's too fast, it's too dark, and haven't you got anything good, or haven't you got any house music or whatever?" And it did end up more broadening out what I'd play as a DJ, and then that kind of, a bit like going through different musical styles as well, sort of led to well, breakbeat, which was like more 135 rather than 160 BPM. In the early noughties, but then at the same time, the electroclash thing was quite exciting, I found, and I went on a bit of a journey as a DJ as well, I suppose, in terms of what music I'd play and stuff, which and then suddenly dubstep comes along, and it seems like within electronic music, there's literally 27 different subgenres now, or depending on where you're counting, and they've all got their own gestation period and sort of ways and means where they started, and that to me, as a bit of a music nerd, is really interesting. how new sounds develop, how the technology, new bits of technology might affect a genre or whatever. So yeah, it's still full of endless surprises, which is why I'm still involved and happy to be so.
Oh yeah, I do. I don't play out as much anymore. I've got four kiddos, so I do a Friday night dance party here, and I've got me four rave kids. They're all under 10, but they just they love the music, and turning around seeing them just dance silly just reminds me of when I was 18, 19, going to a rave or a club and just losing myself in the music. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, no, wicked. I mean, but in the 90s as well, I used to like just really sort of mucking about on the dance floor as well, being silly, being childish, if you like, wearing a Mr. Man t-shirt, or there was, or you'd have people sucking on dummies, or God knows what sort of not exactly reliving things from their childhood, but sort of the naive childish fun element would be in some dance parties, not all, because some were a bit more serious or chin strokey, or heads down, or whatever it was. But yeah, in the early 90s, it was in the rave days, it's certainly very playful.
Oh yeah, I mean, I loved it. There's nothing like going in a rave 9 o'clock at night and then coming out when the sun's coming up, and we've all been there quite a few times, you know.
And you've got a load of new friends, and yeah,
Yeah, you know, for a couple of weeks anyway, you know,
yeah.
until the next rave you go to, and then you meet, you know, more and more. But that again, that's community driven. But I do want to, before we get onto the football, I want to talk about, you know, your Westway record label with good old Mr. Ashworth, and another Liverpool supporter.
He
Well done,
is
well
indeed.
done, Barry lad. Yeah. How did that come about? And then obviously, you know, your record label now with Steve Mack and Mr. Irving Welsh.
With Barry, like I interviewed him, I think in '97 or something, more or less around the time of his first Dub Pistols record for Melody Maker, and then I bumped into him at the Music Magazine Awards, and uh, and then just we started hanging out a little bit, and I think yeah, oh, that's right. I was doing a cover story of him for DJ Mag just after the millennium, where I went to Rome, and his Dub Pistols band was supporting Tricky, and we hung out. But then it was like, oh, we'll do the interview back at the hotel after the gig, and then everyone just got too fucked to do it. So we were like, oh, let's just do it. Sorry for the swearing. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
We were like, oh, let's just do it back in London. So when we got back to London, you know, a week or so later, I arranged to meet up with him, and all right, we're going to do the interview now, but we ended up getting too wasted again to do it, so I had to rearrange another time, and this was quite typical behaviour of Barry at the time, but we just got on really well, and we ended up starting to do a night together in West London called The Truth, and then out of that we were like, oh, should we, getting, you know, hearing bits of music that was unsigned or whatever. Should we start a label together? And the West London thing. Barry virtually lived in the shadow of the Westway, and he had a Blood Pistols track called Westway as well. And we both like the Clash, Westway to the World, and we sort of just decided upon this name and started releasing sort of mainly breakbeat tracks by unknown, usually new producers, and some of these just have subsequently went on to, you know, bigger things or whatever. It was just nice to be feeding into the scene. I'd always wanted to have my own record label, so it was a really nice thing to do. I mean, I had to do all the work because Barry was off traveling the world and bringing back some of these releases by undiscovered people from Belarus or wherever it was. But that was really cool, and we did it for quite a few years. But then the arse fell out of the vinyl market basically with the digital revolution, and we kind of you know, we used to press up 300 and sell them all, and then it was suddenly like, oh, there's loads left out of this run, and it kind of petered out really. We did carry on just a bit digitally, but it didn't seem the same at the time, and it was at the time in the late noughties when the kind of the dancing was recalibrating. It was coming out of the physical era and into the digital era, and it kind of hadn't rebalanced itself. It was pre-streaming, so we sort of knocked it on the head, but obviously have still remained friends. And then in the lockdown also as well, 2020, I was chatting with my friend Steve Mack, and we ended up down his studio one night, and he was playing loads of stuff that was just on his hard drive, unreleased. And I was like, why aren't some of these tunes out there? And we basically decided to start a label as well, and we mentioned it to our mutual friend Irvin, and he was like, oh, I'll come in on it with you as well. And that was where Jack Said What was born 3 years. And well, we didn't actually fully start the label till mid 2022, but out of that has come, again, it's not a money earner for any of us. It's just a nice thing to be doing as well, you know. And we've sort of released music by a combination of sort of returning conquering heroes like John Carter or Rob Davey from Mutiny or whoever it is, and also new people as well coming through. So it's been and then out of that come, we've been doing our own nights, and Irvin and Steve have written the Train Spotting musical, which is coming next year at some point, and Irvin's discovered that he's a really good songwriter. Actually, he's not only is he a great novelist, but he's a he's a good songwriter, and he's worked with Steve and this other guy Scott Booth on a disco album now, which is the next thing that we're releasing on this new label we've set up, Port Sunshine, Urban Welsh and Sci-Fi Soul Orchestra, which is because Irvin's written a new book that's the sequel to Trainspotting, Men in Love, and he had this idea of doing a disco album to accompany it, drawing on some of the themes from the book, emotional themes or whatever, and yeah, it's come out really fantastic. Actually, it sounds amazing. I'll have to send you over a copy of it to check out. It's not out till July the 24th, the album, but there's a couple of singles beforehand, and that's an exciting thing that we're involved with releasing very soon, or kind of now as well, because we still have our regular sort of single releases on Jack Said What and the sister label Out Your Box, which is more for left field, breakbeat, trip hop kind of stuff, and the Jack Said What's more 4/4 house and techno. And the Port Sunshine is now our sort of disco outlet. So it's nice having a record label again, really, and being involved in that side of it.
Well, I mean, you live in Brighton, right? And it just seems like a melting pot. My mate Pete Bones, he lives there. Yeah, he's one of my really good mates. I know the Black Ops.
He's a recent mate for me, but in the last couple of years. But he's great, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's one of those old souls that defo just wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's such an amazing fella, but such a great producer as well. But it just seems
like a Spurs fan.
Yeah. I know he's happy. Same with I talked to the Black Octopus lads the other day.
Yeah, because I went to the pub randomly with this woman who was staying with me for BMC to watch the Man United against Spurs game, but nearby a local pub that Eddie in Brighton. There was Pete Bones. There was the Nick from Black Octopus. There was Dolly Disco. There was all these. I didn't even know there were Spurs fans, really, because some of the time the music crew in Brighton don't so much maybe talk about football. It's more, we just see you on the dance floor at a Jack Said What party or a Stomper Funk or whatever it is, or one of Pete Bones's Fear and Loathing nights. And so yeah, Brighton's great for having a music community down there as well. I'm sort of half the time, because I've just got married to the lovely Joanna who lives in London. I've been spending a lot more time in London myself, having left about 15 years ago, vowing never to live back in London. I've now been staying quite a lot back in London again, and I've actually been really falling in love with it all over again, because there's always something new and exciting to be experienced around the corner.
Well, going back though, Spurs fans don't really pop up that much anymore. They never really have since the FA Cup in like '81. So yeah, I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're raising the roof now, but yeah, it's just been a really crazy season, hasn't it? I mean, Spurs 17th place, win the Europa League and get
Man United was 16th or whatever, weren't they?
Yeah. So I mean, it's just crazy to think there was 3 worse off teams, that just came up. If they had been a bit better, United and Spurs could have got relegated. Which, because I have, I'm a Liverpool supporter, but I've got a tiny, tiny soft spot for Spurs. It's just my dad used to work in the Middle East, and they were on the same plane as him. So he brought me home the jersey with it all signed, and I was just like, what's this? Like, why did you get me this? I support Liverpool, Dad. Like, but I've kept it, and every now and again, I'll see their results and stuff. But yeah, it's just been a crazy season. I mean, especially my part.
I mean, like, yeah, Arsenal kind of pushed Liverpool close for the for the title, but Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, who are the ones who ended up without a trophy?
Mm-hmm.
Arsenal, even though they finished second,
Yeah.
came away trophyless once again.
Arteta thinks they're the best team in Europe. He's so deluded, just like quite a few Arsenal fans. Not all Arsenal fans, but quite a few of them just come out with the most ridiculous things. I mean, the the red cards or the injuries. Every team has injuries. I'm sorry to tell you, but every team has injuries. And plus, like, we were still ahead of him when they had Saka playing. So it's just one of those pull up your big boy socks and you'll be okay. I mean, they do have a good team, and don't get me wrong, Arsenal really do have a good team. I think obviously they need a striker, and I just think they need another couple of world class players. Now for you, you've got one of the youngest squads in the league. Now, at the beginning of the league, you weren't doing so well. Maresca coming in, obviously, he brought up Leicester. And for you've had so many changes in management, and obviously Abramovich leaving and Bowley coming in. What's your thoughts on, like, because Bowley seemed like he was playing FIFA. He was buying every player. At one point, you had 40 something players in the squad.
Costing the billion pounds or whatever. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it was too much. And I actually thought Pochettino should have kept his job at the end of not last season, the season before, because it just seemed like towards the end of the season the squad had started to come good, and then it was quite promising. The first part of the last season just gone, and then just after Christmas, it all went to shit basically, and we've lost loads of games, slid down the table. I think we were about 14th at one point behind Brentford and Fulham, but then crawled back up towards the end of the season, and it's top four and winning a trophy. That's all right by me, because it means Champions League next season as well, and some good young players who hopefully are going to come together and challenge for the title again next season. It'll be interesting to see how Liverpool spend in the close season as well, if they indeed are going to, on somebody to help Salah out up front, or replace Trent.
Well, I mean, we've already replaced Trent with Frimpong. So,
really?
Yeah, he's already signed and ready to go. He's already in a Liverpool shirt, so he's our new right back, which I'm excited about. It's just one of these things that, as you know, Carl. Football is money driven now. It's not, again, harping back to like the 70s and 80s. It's not like, again, going to the turnstile and paying a couple of quid and getting in. It's basically, it's a golden ticket these days to go to a football match, and it costs a lot of money. And these players get paid exuberant amounts of money to roll around on the floor sometimes, and that kind of gets on my last nerves. Where's the sliding tackle that we all love and know? Everybody these days, they get touched and they go down like a sack of potatoes, rolling around. They look absolutely stupid, but we still love them. But for me, Chelsea, I look at the way Man United are, and Man United are in an absolute mess from top to bottom. Their stadiums falling to pieces. Even Ronaldo, when he left, he had that interview, I think, with Piers Morgan, and pretty much outed everyone at United at how bad, even the food, but it's rotten. But then on the other hand, you've got Bowley, who last season was buying everyone up. I think he's figured out now not to, go crazy. Financial fair play is there. But you've got, the Cole Palmers, like, fantastic talent, and now you've bought Dunlap from Ipswich, who again is going to get better and better. I see your team, if James can stay fit, because he's a fantastic football.
Yeah.
If you can keep these players fit, I think you'll do a good run next season. I want Liverpool to win the league. That's your bread and butter, and go as far as you can in Champions League. If you would have asked me at the start of this season, especially with Klopp leaving, would Slot win the league? I would have laughed at you and say, "What drugs are you on? You're talking absolute like cod shit."
Well, yeah, who'd have thought Man City would have dropped off so much as well?
Just really from Rodri. Rodri got injured and was out for the season, but one player shouldn't make your team. I just think with Pep, I think his tactics were a bit stale and he got found out. Just like Klopp did the season before. People like managers, they have all these analysts that watch the teams, and Liverpool got found out last season, and I think Man City got found out this season. Arsenal just didn't get it over the line. They just, I mean, to not go in for a striker this past January was their downfall, I think. Having Marino as a number 9 was like, what are you doing? But I'm glad because Liverpool kind of took advantage of that and ran with it. What's your thoughts? Because I really don't like it, like when opposing fans, like if Chelsea win the league, I'd go, I'm not just a Liverpool supporter, I'm a football supporter. You are the best team in the league. All this crap that comes out like this is the worst league I've ever seen, blah, 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 blah. Because Liverpool win it. It really just gets on my nerves because we were the most consistent. We might not have played the best, but we were the most consistent and got the most points on the board.
And that's what the Premiership's all about, and any league really, isn't it? About consistency, because it's not the magic of the cup, the FA Cup or whatever, is that a minnow team can defeat a top team in an act of merciless giant killing. But if there's 50 games over the season, then the minnows are not going to always win. It's about the team that is the most consistent. Maybe they're not. Well, and several of the top teams might be the best, but various factors, which is why we love football as well, and analysing it. Various factors come into play. Yeah, I'm exactly like you. I'm a football fan. I happen to be a Chelsea fan. Living in Brighton, I sort of keep an eye out for them as well. I've actually, you're talking about soft spots. I've had a bit of a soft spot for Liverpool from when I was a kid, because when Chelsea went down to the second division in the 70s, I sort of lost interest really. My dad, why I started supporting them in the first place is because my dad used to take me to Chelsea, and they became my team. When they went down, I mean, we still went to games, but suddenly it was Leighton Orient instead of Man United or whatever at Stamford Bridge. But that did mean that I'd see like this substitute first game for Leighton Orient, this new player, Laurie Cunningham, having his first game for, there was the various intricacies of lower league football as well. I slightly lost interest in Chelsea then, and because Liverpool had won the FA Cup, I sort of started supporting them as well, like kids can do, like suddenly switch to one of the big teams, which is what my kids have done with Man United as well. Started supporting, they both support Man United, and I've had to make the trip to bloody Old Trafford to spoil them with a day out watching Man United.
How horrible! Oh, yeah,
But that's a bit of a confession. I don't tell many people about my brief dalliance with supporting Liverpool before I went back to Chelsea again.
Well, now it's on audio and video, so you can't get back. But Carl, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I always love like listening to my guests, their stories on how music kind of came into their life and everything, and it's to be able, I mean, for you to have a job in this business, do you pinch yourself?
Lucky, yeah.
Do you pinch yourself every day?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm very lucky. I'm under no illusions. And I mean, I did have to sort of make my own job when I started out being a freelance music journo. I was on the breadline for the 90s really, and and even until relatively recently when I got the editor's job. I'm not a wealthy man, and I'm not wealthy now, but I do love what I do. So yeah, I can't really complain.
Well, you can, but nobody listens, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're interested in Carl's book, you can go. This is on Amazon, and yeah, I highly recommend it. So yeah, check out the book on Amazon. If you want to check out Jack Said What label, you can go to jacksaidwhat.co.uk and obviously djmag.com. Carl, again, absolute pleasure, mate. An hour goes by so quickly, when you just
Oh, yeah.
talk things that you really love and enjoy. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much, Daz. I really enjoyed it, and good luck with your team next season.
Yeah, I'd say the same, but you never know. But thank you everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on. As I always say, please search out new music, but also search out the older stuff that you haven't heard before. There might be an artist that's been hiding in the wardrobe that it might be your favorite. And also, the way this world is, please take care of one another and stay safe and healthy. Until next time, I'll see you later.